I used to be really bad with money, as in $100,000 in debt and living paycheck to paycheck. But through lots of trial and error, I did figure out how to actually become really good with money. And now not only am I financially independent, but I no longer have to stress about money. So I wanted to make this video because being good with money isn't about having, say, this much saved by this age, or about knowing how to pick the best stocks, or making a ton of money. Being good with money is simply a set of actions that you repeatedly take, and these actions are what enable you to have a healthy and empowered relationship with money. And no one really teaches you this stuff, but your relationship with money is probably the one thing, other than your health, that will affect your life the most. Which is why I've come up with this no BS 5-point checklist to help you gauge how you are doing. It'll also help you see where you could optimize and what actions you can take today in your finances to start getting good with money. So if that sounds good to you, let's jump right in. Okay, so first thing on the checklist is your net worth moving in the right direction? You know all those Forbes richest people in the world kind of lists? So these lists are all based on net worth for a reason. In case you need a refresher, net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. In other words, everything you own versus everything you owe. Now, the difference between the two is your equity. And the bigger and more positive your equity, the richer you are. Most people are so focused on income, but at the end of the day, your income doesn't mean anything because income just comes and goes. The real question is what you do with that income. So for example, say you earn $500,000 a year in income. It's a lot of money, but you also have $1 million of debt and zero in assets because you spend everything you make and you don't have any financial literacy. On the other hand, let's say you're someone who earns $50,000 a year in income. It's not very much, but you have zero debt and a small but fully paid off house that's worth $300,000. It's obvious who's in a more financially stable position. The societal programming is basically to just go get a good job so you can essentially buy more stuff and get into more debt. It doesn't take any independent thinking or financial literacy to do that. But it does take financial literacy to accumulate assets instead of liabilities. So for example, to spend more time thinking about stocks, real estate, and assets that you want to buy instead of all the cars, shoes, and handbags and expensive trips that you want to buy. Schools don't teach you how to think this way. It's up to you to go against the grain and focus on increasing your net worth in a world where everyone is more focused on acquiring status symbols, showing off on Instagram, and looking rich versus actually being rich. Now, if after crunching your numbers, you realize that your net worth is negative, don't feel bad about yourself. We all have different starting points in life. Rather than judging yourself for not being farther along, just put that energy towards moving forward instead. Focus on direction, not speed. You keep moving in the right direction, however slowly at first, maybe chipping away $100 here and there at your debt, while also adding whatever you can to your assets, to your 401k, to your IRA, whatever, your savings accounts, and you start gaining momentum. That's how I went from a negative $100,000 net worth to 7-figure positive net worth in less than 8 years. I thought it would take decades, but it didn't, because you learn things, you get better, you get more motivated. The pace that you start with is never the pace that you end with. People and situations that you never could have imagined appear to help you along towards your dreams, and progress creates more progress. So the universe really is a big, beautiful place, but in order to experience that, you have to at least get started moving in the right direction. Okay, this next checklist item is my favorite. Are you ready? So the next checklist item is that you are working towards what I call the crossover point, or what I also like to call the fuck you moment. Excuse my language, but there's literally no better way to describe it. So the crossover point is when this line crosses that line. This line is your monthly investment income, or the money that you can withdraw from your investments. This can consist of, say, drawing down principal by selling a little bit of your stock portfolio each year, or living off of dividends, rental income, or some combination of the three. And then this other line is your monthly living expenses. When your investment income that comes in every month exceeds the living expenses that go out every month, you are financially free, and you can officially say fuck you to your job, your boss, or anything else in your life that is less than ideal. Now, I don't actually want you to do that. That's rude and obnoxious, but it does feel super satisfying to imagine. So people, this crossover point, getting there is the goal. Once you reach this point, you will never have to work for money again because you'll have money working for you. You get to live life on your terms, choosing what you do with your time, where you do it, how you do it, and who you do it with. At this point, people say stuff to me like,
well, what if I love what I do and I never want to retire?
Well, that's not the point. I've actually reached this crossover point already, and I still work because I also love what I do. So reaching this point doesn't mean you have to stop working. It just means that you can. And look, I get it. Finding out that you've been spending $1,000 a month on eating out instead of saving for your future, that is a sobering moment and realization. You know the saying, ignorance is bliss, but having to work until you die to pay the bills, is that really bliss? So this chart just cuts through all the BS and it empowers you with the data that you need to make money decisions with your eyes wide open and see what it really takes to buy your freedom. Now, charts and metrics like this are great because they're so objective, but being good with money isn't just about data and numbers. It's also about how you feel, which is why I want to talk to you about this next very important checklist item. You know you are someone who is good with money when you feel great about spending money. Now, feeling great about spending money doesn't just come from having lots of money, because there are people with millions of dollars in the bank who still feel insecure and are incapable of spending money joyfully. So just having a lot of money doesn't make you good with money. Feeling great about spending money comes from knowing without a shadow of a doubt that you can actually afford whatever you're buying without jeopardizing more important goals and priorities. Because there's really nothing wrong with dropping, say, $800 on shoes or even buying yourself a $6 oat milk latte every single day. The problem is when you swipe your card for something and in the back of your mind, you're feeling this low-key guilt and anxiety because you know that there's probably something smarter that you should do with that money instead, but you're not even sure what that is. And truly, the only way to feel great about whatever you spend money on and not experience this is by budgeting. Budgeting is really just getting clear on your priorities and then aligning your spending with those priorities. Because if you are going to spend $800 on shoes, don't you want to feel great about it instead of guilty? Or if you're not going to spend $800 on shoes, don't you want to feel great about that too? So I actually got invited to Croatia for Yacht Week this summer. And after checking my budget, I decided I'd rather not go because I would rather spend that money on funding some of my other priorities, like saving up to buy a piece of land on the beach, which is a dream of mine. And so saying no to that Yacht Week didn't make me feel like FOMO or deprivation. It just felt good because I knew what my priorities were and I was aligning my spending with those values. The only way to have this type of clarity when making spending decisions is to start budgeting. Now, budgeting involves doing a bit of soul searching and asking yourself hard questions like, what is important to me? Does the way I spend money reflect what's important to me? You know, where do I want my hard-earned money to go? So feeling great about spending money, it's not something that just happens accidentally, but if you want to get good with money, I would say budgeting is a non-negotiable step, and it can actually be fun. I literally prefer sitting at home, working on my budget, rather than going out on a Friday night because I love it so much. Why? Because budgeting enables me to have fun with my money and spend it guilt-free, which to me is how you really know that you're being good with money. With all the apps and softwares that automatically link up to your bank accounts and credit cards, budgeting really only needs to take 15 minutes a week, max. Personally, I love YNAB or You Need a Budget for budgeting. It's a really good software. I'll link to it below, so please go check it out. Also, if you'd like to see more budgeting videos from me, please type budgeting in the comments below. It's not something I've talked about a lot yet, but I do have a lot to say on the topic. All right, moving right along, the fourth sign that you're good with money is if you are financially prepared for almost anything that could come your way. There is nothing more demoralizing than feeling like you are finally getting ahead and then all of a sudden getting hit with some unexpected bill. But there is another way. So all expenses can be categorized as either regular expenses or irregular expenses. So regular expenses are all the things that you normally expect, such as rent, utilities, food, groceries, gas. Most of us are pretty good about preparing for these expenses because otherwise you'd be out on the street or you wouldn't have electricity. So most of us are very good about regular expenses. What tends to get most people are the irregular expenses. The emergency vet bill, the car repair, the dental work that you have to all of a sudden get. These types of expenses really suck because they make you feel like you're always playing catch up instead of getting ahead. But here's the thing, even though these are unexpected expenses in the sense that you never know when they're gonna come up, what it's gonna be, and how much it's gonna be, we do know that these will come up. Like, we all know that life does throw curveballs. We just don't know exactly what they're gonna be. So if you actually add up all of these emergencies and surprises and curveballs over the last few years of your life, you're gonna see some predictable patterns. For example, I have an adorable little French bulldog, and so far he's averaged around one big vet visit a year. So I would be lying to myself if I didn't factor that into the expenses that I should prepare for over the next 10 years or so that he's with me. Now, if you have a car, you should probably be prepared to have to pay something to maintain it, whether it's a flat tire, a dent, a mechanical issue, or if you have a house, you'll probably want to prepare to have to fix something or deal with some weather damage at some point, okay? And a lot of us don't have a car or a house, but if you have a body, you'll probably need medical or dental care at some point. This is all pretty common sense, predictable stuff. So being good with money means that you are brutally honest with yourself about all of these unexpected expenses in your life and preparing your finances in advance to meet them. The easiest way to do this is by setting aside an emergency fund. An emergency fund is a savings account that is separate from your everyday checking account, where you have money set aside to cover any curveball expenses, even though you don't know exactly what those curveballs will be or how much they're gonna be. But at least you have something. You can start today by saving $100 a month or whatever amount you can manage towards an emergency fund. That already makes you better with money than the 49% of Americans who couldn't come up with $400 to cover an emergency. So an emergency fund is super essential, and it's one of 6 accounts that you should really have in order to reach financial freedom. I talk more about that in this video here. Another way to be prepared for these kind of unexpected expenses is by budgeting specifically for these line items ahead of time. Now, this is a little more advanced if you're completely brand new to budgeting. I wouldn't start with this. I would just start with the emergency fund. But say if you have a pretty good handle on what your expenses are and you have kind of like a history of what your past expenses have looked like, you might want to do something like this. So for example, I don't know when Jupiter's next vet bill is going to be, but I do know that there will be one, and it'll probably cost around $500, give or take, based on what's happened in the past. So I'll actually include that in my monthly budget as if it was a recurring monthly bill. So I'll put away $50 every single month so that by the time there is a vet visit, I have some money and I'm not just starting from zero. Most people are never gonna do this. It's easy to feel flush and rich when it's payday and start spending it all on stuff. But if you really think through what your unexpected but really expected expenses are going to be, you'll see that a good chunk of your paycheck is already spoken for. Don't tell yourself the story that you can't ever get ahead because emergencies keep happening. Otherwise, you're gonna always be playing defense and reacting instead of proactively creating the life that you want. And now for checklist item number 5, you can talk openly about money. Now, I grew up in a family where money was completely taboo, no dinner table talk. Anytime I got curious, because I was a very curious teenager, and I started asking my parents about our finances, the air got super tense. And this kind of hush-hush taboo attitude around money really carried over negatively into my adulthood. Like when I got my first real job, it didn't occur to me to ask maybe somebody older and more experienced, such as a coworker, how I should manage my paycheck so that I didn't just blow it every 2 weeks on dumb stuff. But asking for advice about money is just not something I thought people ever did. And then with friends, I used to be embarrassed to tell them that I didn't have room in my budget for a certain trip or dinner that they wanted me to go on. So I would just go and then overspend and then feel terrible about it afterwards. This is something I talk about in this video here, 8 money habits that keep you poor. It's my most popular video with over 2 million views for a reason, so please go check it out. But the point here is, if you want to get good at something, you seek advice, you look at it, you work on it, you talk about it. Being good with money means that you don't have all these stories around what your money says about you and what people think and all these blocks. You're simply unapologetic about your priorities, you're clear on your priorities, and you're not ashamed of them. Something I noticed is that rich people actually talk about money all the time. There's this sort of ease and a comfort around it. If they want to talk about money, they talk about it. If they don't want to talk about it, they don't talk about it. It's not this like taboo, hush-hush topic with all this kind of shame and heaviness around it. They also have the vocabulary. It's a lot easier to talk openly about money when you understand how money works and you have kind of the financial education and the terminology to know how to talk about it. You understand what a stock is, what an income statement is, what a credit score is, or if you don't know, you're able to just ask and find out. So I think being able to talk openly and easily about money is a really great sign that you are good with money. And it's one that unfortunately most of us didn't learn how to do from our parents growing up, but it's never too late to change that. At the end of the day, being good with money means that the primary emotions that you feel around money are positive ones: empowerment, joy, hope, happiness, freedom, versus guilt, shame, despair, anxiety, stress. So start going through these checklist items and your feelings about money will start shifting from negative to positive. Also, I've said it before, but please be kind to yourself. Focus on direction, not speed. What matters isn't what your finances actually look like right now and what's happened in the past. What matters is that you're taking action to make your finances just a little bit better every day, that you're moving in the right direction. If you're not good with money with $1,000 in the bank, you're not going to be good with money with $1 million in the bank. You'll just continue to be bad with money, but on a bigger scale. So it's really worth starting to work on your relationship with money now, regardless of how much you have or don't have. Now, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I post new videos here every week with no BS money talk and advice, as well as fun behind the scenes vlogs about my life, so you can see what it really looks like to achieve financial independence and live life on your terms. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. Remember to do something nice for yourself. Tell the people you love that you love them, and I'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.